Given that it is possible to be wrong, there must also be a right way to do something.
That's not how the Force works.
Let us run through the process of trying to not be wrong while creating something. I will create 3 characters within the Star Wars universe.
I got a bad feeling about this.
These will be our heroes, for fate will conspire to send them off on an adventure. I suspect there are an infinite number of ways to be right and wrong. As you add more stories to a single universe, it either becomes deep or contradictory. Fitting 2 galaxy-shaking stories in the same universe can be impossible. When the stories try to cover the same ground, they are in conflict. To prevent this, there must be a constraint on the story. Nobody may make large-scale changes to the universe. As long as your story stays local, it can exist in the same universe as all the others. Imagine 1,000,000 stories, all crossing paths and interacting, but never contradicting each other. Any good sci-fi setting is likely to have many citizens, all with their own lives. By writing on a smaller scale, you get extra detail implied for free. When Luke walks into the Mos Eisley Cantina, he has a reason to be there. The trick is that everyone else in the building has a reason of his own, not just the hero. That is the philosophy I'm going with. These characters are not built to change the galaxy, they are just people. For them to be worth telling stories about, we still need them to be a little exceptional.
We're wanted men. I have the death sentence on 12 systems.
Luke would not be so popular if he'd remained a moisture farmer.
Where do you think you're going? Well, I'm not going that way. It's much too rocky.
It is also preferable for these characters to be different from each other. Before we get into the content, we've got some horrible news. The Bread Circus mascot, Kakapo Dameron, is getting a little sickly. Looking mangy and haggard, you could say. All we've been told is that he's about to audition for the Choir Invisible.
I don't feel so well.
The veterinarian has informed us that only an infusion of likes, comments and subscribes will save him from certain death. But where would we get any of those? Are you feeling guilty yet?
I'm dying.
You should. The first character we create will handle transport. Being a pilot takes a combination of training and skill that not everyone can have. Surface vehicles can greatly expand the scope of our stories. The sky is the limit. To go beyond, we need both a ship and someone to fly it.
Who's gonna fly it, kid? You?
You bet I could. I'm not such a bad pilot myself.
Let's start with a template. A fighter pilot for the Rebel Alliance. Not someone who was involved in the trench run against the Death Star. That would be going too far. We'll go for something subtle, like a nameless pilot who had been in the evacuation of Hoth. Involved in the Battle of Endor, perhaps, but not one who flew inside the Death Star too. Fighter pilot is a convenient background. It demands access to quite advanced technology. Perhaps not the best, but you can't make a spaceship if you've just discovered fire. Our fighter pilot needs a starfighter, and it will be a Y-wing. This is not the optimal choice. X-wings are better than Y-wings. An X-wing can do the same job as a Y-wing in nearly all scenarios. The Y-wing is the older of the 2 models, well behind the cutting edge. For years, the Alliance used Y-wings as their primary starfighter. If the X-wing is the best overall, the Y-wing wins in versatility. Given time and spare parts, a Y-wing can be configured for any sane mission. Y-wings are considered better in a bombing or reconnaissance role. Y-wings have both laser cannons and ion cannons, plus the proton torpedoes. That's not the real reason I picked a Y-wing pilot as the character template. One of my main motivations is something the X-wing doesn't offer at all. The standard model is the BTL S3, which has 2 seats. That opens up a lot of options. Stories can now involve a passenger or small cargo item. While that is convenient, it has consequences. Why is our newly invented pilot in a Y-wing if Luke was given a superior X-wing? There are multiple ways to explain this. We can use this to say how fabulous our pilot is, that he's so skilled he doesn't need the X-wing. Where Luke is the best bush pilot in the Outer Rim, My character is just the best ever.
Seven's had a busy day too, and she's come through it smelling like the proverbial rose.
Perhaps just the best pilot in some other region of the galaxy, if I'm feeling humble that day. The more realistic answer is just the opposite, a lack of skill. If there is a best pilot, then that leaves every other pilot in the galaxy as an option.
That's impossible, even for a computer.
But it's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
As the Rebel Alliance gets more X-Wings, that frees up the squadrons of Y-Wings. Now there are more seats for the pilots who are merely good, not exceptional. This new Y-Wing pilot could be one of the new recruits, or an old one who wasn't assigned a fighter until recently. Speaking of old, there is a relevant proverb. There are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots.
Got a problem here.
Eject! I can hold it! Pull up! No, I'm alright!
This new pilot will be a similar age to Luke Skywalker. The rest of the trio will be substantially younger. Where the Y-Wing pilot remembers a childhood in the Old Republic, the new generation only knew the Empire.
Let me see your identification.
Their adventures will take place after the fall of the Empire, perhaps 5 to 15 years after. To survive that long with only mortal skills, the pilot must be cunning and cautious.
You have your moments. Not many of them.
After a decade of war, he may even retire from the military.
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
At that point, the Y-Wing would be nearly obsolete. Our pilot may be able to buy his own Y-Wing from the New Republic for a fraction of its original price.
Credits will do fine.
Operating a starfighter is expensive, though. He would need to rake in a lot of money to keep a Y-Wing working without the military to cover the operating costs. Becoming a mercenary might work, but it would be a precarious existence. A more likely career path would be to get hold of a large freighter and add a small hangar to it. The less you fly the starfighter, the less expensive it is to own. A Y-Wing offers a far better chance of evading pursuit than an escape pod would. It could even function as a shuttle if needed. Another option might be a desk job, staying in the New Republic fleet but out of direct combat. At this point, we need a better name than the pilot. It's time to turn the template into an individual. This means we need to decide quite a few details. For a start, let's pick the simple answer for species: human. There are a lot of those around. Humans are perhaps the single most populous race in the galaxy. That means age is in a normal human range. No century-old juveniles here. Height can be on the low side for a human. Let's say 1.6 meters.
Right now you're really drunk.
As long as you can reach the pedals, height should make little difference in the cockpit. One more thing. I have decided this Y-Wing pilot will be female.
How can you do this?
For a name, let's go with Gila Acton. Now, I realize when I say female fighter pilot, there are associations.
Bombers, keep that tight formation. Fighters, protect the bombers.
A lot of people may think of a series called Battlestar Galactica. There are 3 relevant Viper pilots in that series, at least for the moment. The one who would be 4th most relevant is Boomer. He's a great guy, but we're really here for Apollo and Starbuck.
Be along presently.
The more interesting of the two is Starbuck, a charismatic maverick.
Do you ever take that smoldering weed out of your mouth?
Starbuck is almost as good as he thinks he is.
I didn't choose you to help lead us through without a great deal of anguish. If it'll do any good, let me assure you that should we fail, no one will survive. The rest of our friends must sit in anticipation of our skill.
We contrast him with Apollo, who prefers to do things by the book.
Boomer, notify Corps Command that we have located some stores which we will distribute as far as they go.
Gila Acton is not intended to be some kind of female Starbuck. The real comparison is to Apollo's sister, Athena. Just like her brother, Athena is qualified to fly a starfighter. However, she spends most of her time on the bridge of the Battlestar Galactica. As her father is in command, he is unwilling to send both his kids into battle. Athena will be our baseline, the main inspiration that Gila will diverge from. For a start, there will be no protective father keeping her Y-Wing away from battle.
Despite being a robot, my suffering is incalculable.
Let's go over her background, the origin story behind Gila Acton. We have already decided that she can remember life before the rise of the Empire. To expand her character, let's focus on that part. The name of her homeworld is unimportant, we don't need to decide that. 2 years before Luke joined the war, the famous Corellian Treaty unified the rebellion. Now it was the Alliance to Restore the Republic, led by Mon Mothma. Soon afterwards, Mothma wrote another document, the Declaration of Rebellion. This had the unintended consequence of creating multiple secession worlds. These star systems announced that they supported the Rebel Alliance instead of the Empire. Our new Y-Wing pilot will be from one of these worlds. Palpatine sent his Imperial fleet to each planet, crushing all of them after a few weeks. By that time, the secession worlds had defected, bringing much of their population and resources. A planetary navy is where you would expect to find starfighters like the Y-Wing, along with other useful ships. Gila Acton was allocated a Y-Wing, manufactured on her home planet. She will have joined the rebels along with many people she knew, older pilots she grew up with. Gila spent a lot of time training to be a pilot, and probably started by flying snowspeeders. On a mission that involves leaving the cockpit, the pilot carries a DH-17 blaster pistol. We expect any Imperial entanglements to happen at short range most of the time. Han's DL-44 pistol has a range of only 50 meters. The Blastic DH-17 has an optimal range of 30 meters and can reach 120 meters. The Rebels use DH-17s on Leia's ship, and the Empire uses them too. It's only natural the New Republic would continue issuing this model of blaster. Gila is a remarkably good shot, both with a pistol and a proton torpedo. She will be relatively severe, reserved, cautious. For a fighter pilot, that is. Still reckless on a normal scale. Gila will also be ruthlessly pragmatic. She can't afford to be anything else.
Sometimes diplomacy requires a little saber rattling.
Her ship is not the best, and her piloting skill is good, not great. Normally, we deal with the best pilots in the galaxy, often force-sensitive individuals. Showing someone at a more normal skill level would have interesting consequences. A Y-Wing can't hope to match the speed of a TIE fighter, but its hyperdrive still allows for a clever escape. As a Y-Wing pilot, Gila needs an astromech droid in the starfighter's socket. Technically, you can go without them, but you would never want to. The Y-Wing has a hyperdrive, but no navigation computer. Before a mission, the R2 unit has hyperdrive coordinates added to its memory banks. To visit anywhere that isn't already in the droid, you need access to a Navi computer. For an astromech droid, we'll pick an obscure one, the R3.
We count 30 rebel ships, Lord Vader, but they're so small they're evading our...
These droids look just like an R2, except with a transparent dome for the head. They are meant to serve on large ships, Death Stars and Star Destroyers. Still, the R3 retains the starfighter functionality, just like the original R2 model. From the factory, they can hold 5 pre-calculated hyperspace jumps. This R3 has been upgraded along the way, and was acquired in the same bargain as the Y-Wing. In the era of the New Republic, Gila is dedicated to training up the next generation of pilots. She is aware that she isn't needed, and may be open to going off on an adventure. She is also used to teaching others, so she often carries passengers. Sometimes she dreams of flying a freighter, some apprentices learning the ropes as the only crew. The next character needs to fill a certain gap, which our pilot does not have. Gila Acton is not force-sensitive. She has no chance of becoming a Jedi.
There's no mystical energy field controls my destiny. It's all a lot of simple tricks and nonsense.
First, let's exclude a few options. We don't want a copy of Luke and Anakin, so no pilot/technician from a desert planet.
This R2 unit has a bad motivator, look!
No farmers. No kids salvaging barely usable parts to be restored.
Isn't he great?
We already have a fighter pilot, so we'll avoid anyone else from the military. Let's try something different. What if, instead of copying Luke, we focus on someone like Leia? Yes, that's right. The next character will be a noble or politician. But he is not yet lost down the dark path. He can be saved.
And don't forget, she's a politician and they're not to be trusted.
And besides, you're generalizing. The Chancellor doesn't appear to be corrupt.
Palpatine is a politician.
We can prevent him from hanging out with too many politicians, and therefore turning to evil.
Be careful of your friend, Palpatine.
Be careful of what?
But what senator would have the courage to propose such a radical amendment?
If only Senator Amidala were here.
Let's say he is only an aide, apprentice to the senator.
Our fans are interested in both AIDS and 9/11.
The positive aspects of this background are all related to knowledge. Our second character, Leptar Hextrophon, is a diplomat. He speaks several different languages and can understand a few others. He also has a working knowledge of every notable species and star system. A character like this can be very useful in your various stories. While he may be outstanding in a social arena, there are many gaps in his skill set. Leptar has experience operating repulsor lift vehicles, like a luxury land speeder. Repairing machinery is not a skill he ever thought was important. Even Leia has more technical knowledge than Leptar. In military matters, he has an idea of the big picture, an overall strategy. While he carries a blaster, Leptar Hextrophon is quite inaccurate with it. The senator insisted that all his servants learn first aid skills, entirely for his own benefit. This character gives us a rare opportunity. Perhaps there exist Hextrophon family stables. Our man Leptar has access to them and owns his own riding lizard. I don't think it's necessary to name the dewback. We'll leave them behind anyway. The important part is to establish that our next character gets on well with animals. We can only speculate that these steeds are used for dewback polo. A land speeder would make more sense if you need practical transport. Another benefit is that Leptar can be the one who brings the three characters together. Being directly involved with the New Republic, he might cross paths with anyone. A minor local incident is the perfect excuse to send Gila Acton to meet him. The pilot serves as transport and protection, and Leptar gets into the backseat of the Y-Wing. He has all the other skills, backed up by his untrained force abilities. Leptar Hextrophon is an accomplished detective. He can read people exceptionally well.
I don't have anything else, but credits will do fine.
No, they won't.
Credits will do fine.
No, they won't.
If you need someone to haggle over the price, Leptar is your best bet. He can be useful in a lot of ways besides combat. Now, the most important question of all. Is he to be trained as a Jedi?
On second thought, no. Not really, no.
The answer is no, not yet. First of all, Leptar isn't aware of his own force potential. In the Old Republic, he would have been discovered and taken to the Jedi Temple. Alas, he was born under the reign of the Empire, and the New Republic is very new.
Had he been born in the Republic, we would have identified him earlier.
They can't justify the cost of screening for force-sensitive recruits over the whole galaxy. At some point during his adventures, Leptar will discover the true nature of his instincts. All his life, he was able to sense the mood of the room. It didn't seem to matter if he was in the Senate chambers or the stable. Leptar had assumed these were his own emotions, or his skill at reading faces. In fact, this was the Force, accidentally serving as a moral compass. Due to Leptar's position in the political system, he was exposed to the nadir of evil.
There's something not right here. I feel cold.
Whenever he heard one of Palpatine's announcements, he felt an unnatural chill. Associating this feeling with the Empire, he was protected from the dark side of the Force. Normally, every Force-sensitive is tempted by the dark side, even more so in the case of one whose training is not yet complete.
This is a dangerous time for you, when you will be tempted by the dark side of the Force.
Yes. To Obi-Wan, you listen.
I think there's a good reason for my character to have an aversion to the dark side, at least until he learns about the Force. Once Leptar Hextrophon learns he is Force-sensitive, he will report for Jedi training. At least, he will try to find Luke and talk about it. There is no guarantee that he ever begins the training, or that he ever meets Luke Skywalker. After all, Luke is a busy man, and he's heard this story before.
I am ready. Ben, I can be a Jedi. Ben, tell him I'm ready.
A lot of people think they have what it takes to be a Jedi, and they're mostly wrong.
But I want to go. It's what I've always dreamed of doing.
Becoming a Jedi will be a long-term goal for Leptar Hextrophan.
Training to become a Jedi is not an easy challenge. And even if you succeed, it's a hard life.
When he sets off on his adventure, it is for a different reason. Perhaps the New Republic sends him on a diplomatic mission, alone. Alternatively, he may be in the wrong place at the wrong time, swept up into an adventure against his will. Leptar is an idealist with a focus on compromises.
The trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to.
Anakin Skywalker, the negotiator.
He is prone to conceding more ground than was necessary when he could have driven a harder bargain. Still, Leptar usually gets what he truly wanted out of the deal. Which brings us to what it is Mr. Hextrophan wants. I think the best answer for this is to copy directly from Mon Mothma. Leptar would like to do good, a great deal of good, on a tremendous scale.
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
The motivation is genuinely pure. It just leads to some dangerous places. It would not be inaccurate to say there were two great dictators, Palpatine and Mothma. There is a great difference between the two, but there are also similarities. Mon Mothma insisted on democracy, that the Alliance elect its leader. She also decreed that this leader would have ultimate power to condemn entire worlds. Every time this so-called election has taken place, nobody has dared to oppose Mon Mothma. This was probably the correct decision, and the galaxy is better off for it. Because Mon Mothma is not actually evil, she noticed the principle. It bothered her, and it will bother Leptar. Not enough to stop him from trying to gain power, but enough that he won't cheat. Leptar's clothes are more expensive than they look. As an aide to his planet's senator, being noticed would be a mistake on his part. This character doesn't have a personal starship. Transport is usually arranged on his behalf. He has quite a nice landspeeder, with cavernous boot space and solid performance. His most important possession is a droid, his trusted assistant. This model of droid is not like C-3PO, not at all. The 3D-4X Administrator droid is an extremely capable machine. Created by Servodroid, they are built as a variation of the Protocol droid.
How many languages do you speak?
Its translation capacity is only 2.5 million languages, which is terrible. Horrendous. How can you possibly get by with so few? After all, we've seen 3PO use as many as 10 different languages. It's possible you might not need all 6 million forms of communication.
Sir, might I shut him up or shut him down?
That was the basis of the 3D-4X, designed for business instead of diplomacy. It's a perfect choice for our Diplomat character. Leptar doesn't expect to be captured by Ewoks. Translation isn't as important. What matters is that 3D-4X is loyal, reliable, and intelligent. This droid is a capable leader on its own, able to oversee a complex task without mistakes. Another useful feature would be all the hidden compartments. Useful to store your things and your stuff.
And here's where I keep assorted lengths of wire. Whoa.
Whatchamacallits have to go in the drawer with the thingamybobs.
Let me show you some of the different lengths of wire I used.
Leptar will have 2 weapons, but neither one is particularly good. The first is a Quick 6 from Merson Munitions. This is a sporting blaster like Leia uses, though a different model. These are relatively low power blasters, available even on worlds where most blasters are restricted. For someone in his position, Leptar Hextrophan is entirely justified in carrying this. He never trains in using it, so on the whole he is inaccurate. For the times it really matters, somehow everyone has been aimed perfectly. He doesn't understand this, but we do. The Force can be a powerful ally. His other weapon is a ceremonial sword, and notice the phrasing. Not a vibro sword. He has a mundane sword, a sharp metal blade. I would like to emphasize here that Hextrophan does not pretend this sword is a lightsaber. he has no idea that practice from this will carry over into lightsaber use. Far more important than his possessions, he has contacts and deep pockets. When the trio ends up at its starport in need of fuel and repairs, Leptar will end up paying. Even more valuable are the contacts, knowing someone who knows someone. Gila Acton, Y-Wing pilot, is from a different world. Leptar is from a prominent star system, the sector capital if there is such a thing. Gila was from a secession world just a few stars away and far less famous. Perhaps Leptar will be sent on a mission to help restore Gila's planet to prosperity. Leptar is not as brave as the other characters, though not exactly a coward. He just knows he's more help to the galaxy alive, and would like to stay that way. The final character in our trio will need to round out the party. There are a few notable blind spots that the previous pair have. A diplomat may help in the courtroom, and a pilot is almost essential for any journey. However, drop them in the middle of a swamp and they will struggle.
You, sir, all bombard.
That's where the third man comes in. Someone who is prepared for any environment, who spends weeks surviving alone. This is a scout working for the New Republic. We shall call him Narration. What is a scout, exactly?
A miserable little pile of secrets!
It all comes down to one fact. Space is big.
Really big. You just won't believe how...
why do I bother?
We often talk about the galaxy, but the Republic is only a fraction of that size. The old Republic was still expanding throughout the galaxy when it fell. The Empire added a new star system to its records every 207 minutes. That is after it reduced funding to the Imperial Survey Corps. Saving money was not the true motivation for this budget change. The reason is because the Emperor hates freedom. That is literally the rationale.
I love democracy. I love the Republic.
An expanding empire has the effect of stretching the Imperial military across too large an area. The other reason is that on the frontier, freedom is normal. When there are only outposts and settlers, the Emperor can't maintain control. If you want to oppress the galaxy, you need to prevent people from moving away to the fringes of known space. Accordingly, the Emperor has closed the final frontier. For most people that makes no difference, but for a scout it changes everything. They are the first to explore a new world, unless it happens to be inhabited.
You're a jittery little thing, aren't you?
In that case, a scout would make first contact and report back.
What did he say?
I'm rather embarrassed, General Solo, but it appears you are to be the main course at a banquet in my honor.
Along with a list of all the various hazards this world has in store and how to withstand them. With the fall of the Empire, life has changed for a scout. The New Republic says exploration is back on the menu. The features of a scout require that he be able to operate independently. That means he needs a ship and the ability to pilot it himself. This rules out any large ships. The scout ship must be about the size of the Falcon. Anything larger would require multiple crew members, which undermines the idea of a lone scout. There are several options for scout ships, including one based on the TIE Fighter. This is the Senar Lone Scout A, a design that predates the Empire. Its size and cargo bays are similar to a standard light freighter, and so is the price. A little over 100,000 credits new, or 30,000 for a second-hand one. This is entirely within the realm of possibility, a fair price. This does explain why the Empire saw exploration as expensive. To outfit a single scout could cost up to 50k, and you need more than a few scouts. On the other hand, scouting has few ongoing costs. A single starfighter costs as much as 3 to 5 scouts, and for a capital ship you could have dozens. A blockade runner is worth over 1 million credits, as are the larger freighters. In addition to the ship, scouts require some basic equipment. This is more important than for most characters, given how unpredictable exploration is. First of all, the scout needs another vehicle. A ship can only get you so far. It makes sense to carry a speeder bike. These will be similar to the Imperial bikes with optional blaster cannon. There is no reason a scout should need blasters. on his bike anyway. The bike enables higher speed and cargo capacity than walking everywhere. This bike will be tuned for scouting, meaning an unusual change to the suspension. To cross all kinds of terrain, a scout needs an upgraded hover ceiling. Blasters and speed are acceptable sacrifices if it allows you to cross a crevasse. Normal bikes can only reach 25 meters up. This scout bike will be modified for 50 meters. The most visible modification will be a set of panniers, since otherwise there is no cargo space. Exploring is a dangerous job, so the scout will be more heavily armed than other characters. Hostile flora and fauna could be anywhere. A scout must always be prepared. Any kind of pirate or brigand may cause problems too. There could be conflict with the natives of a planet, or any kind of spacefaring lowlife. The lone scout LSA-2 is armed with a single laser cannon mounted just below the cockpit. It may have some ability to aim, but is far from ideal in ship-to-ship combat. This particular scout ship is a decent speed, but has terrible maneuverability. It doesn't handle like an X-Wing or TIE fighter, despite the design lineage. The scout needs a blaster pistol to carry everywhere. He can never know what obstacles he might face, so power is essential. This means a heavy pistol, and what could be better than Han's DL-44? This pistol has low range and ammo capacity, but it deals a devastating blow.
Yes, I bet you have.
This firepower will sometimes be overkill and sometimes just enough to do the trick. Suppose a monster with natural armor takes a swipe. Wouldn't you rather have a bit more oomph in the pistol?
It would have to have some form of natural armor plating.
It could explain much, especially since the colonists are armed only with Phaser 1.
But our people have Phaser number 2.
The other blaster covers the greatest weakness of the DL-44. Anytime a longer range is needed, our scout will reach for his blaster rifle. Most of the time he will leave this rifle aboard the ship or on his speeder bike. The ideal choice would be a Blastech E11 or the Freedom 1 clone of it. The copy was manufactured on Sullust by Sorosub, who ended up siding with the New Republic. Originally called the Stormtrooper 1, the name was hastily changed. These have a longer range than blaster pistols, fully automatic fire, and a folding stock. Most importantly for the scout, E11s are compact and lightweight. These are the only blasters. The one remaining weapon is of a different kind. This could have been an ordinary knife if the budget was extremely limited. The sensible choice is a vibroblade, which are nearly unique to Star Wars. With the power turned off, it functions like any other knife. High-frequency vibrations in the blade enhance its cutting potential beyond a normal tool. Despite introducing it as a weapon, the Scout's vibroblade may never be used in combat.
Han, can you reach my lightsaber? Yeah, sure.
After using it to cut through foliage, it may be prudent to clean the sap off the blade. Other essential equipment is needed for other types of danger. Before you even think about setting foot on another world, it would be a good idea to run some scans. Are there any toxic gases in the atmosphere? Perhaps there is a kind of airborne pollen, spore, prion, or other hostile biology. Those are some hidden dangers, things that might cause a scout to go missing. You might also be cautious about leaving the ship on Hoth, or Tatooine, or Polis Massa. Every spaceship needs a spacesuit, preferably several. Han never wears a spacesuit in the movies, but side characters do. Most of the time, your destination will have a breathable atmosphere. Given that you're visiting someone who lives there, it's possible to live there.
I want my lamp back. I'm gonna need it to get out of this slimy mud hole.
Mud hole? Slimy? My home this is!
The Scout has no such luxury. He is the first one to visit. Based on his reports, civilization selects which worlds are worth the effort. Someone will inevitably try to mine the planet to varying success. They need housing and supplies, as do the waves of settlers. The supply chain brings in traders, and the mining town expands. Tatooine turned out to have bad ore, so the Corellia mining sandcrawlers were abandoned. Too expensive to recover. The planet was unprofitable anyway. The Scout is 100 star systems away by the time these things are discovered. For a moderately hostile environment, a breath mask might be all that's required. These can handle minor problems, such as the air being 78% carbon monoxide. The Scout does not underestimate the power of a good wardrobe.
And you're sure there's nothing left on board?
A few containers of supplies. The Queen's wardrobe maybe, but not enough for you to barter with.
When you don't have an exoskeleton, it helps to dress for the local weather. To properly survey each world, he needs electro-binoculars and scanners. An entire locker devoted to lighting. You never want to run out of that. Similarly, 2 medium-sized crates of medical supplies, stored in different parts of the ship. Having a few droids aboard might help, but they would be a luxury. The Scout doesn't need them, so the New Republic won't pay for them. Knack would like to add some droids, but what he really wants is to have a jetpack. On this, the New Republic saw his point, and gave him a device to fill the same role. A box of grappling hooks, including a liquid cable launcher. Still pretty cool, arguably better than a jetpack. The final tool is extra communications equipment. Running into trouble out here would be very bad. Distress beacons come in 2 flavors, subspace and hyperspace. Hyperspace is easy enough. This is instant communication anywhere in the galaxy. The only trouble is that a hyperspace beacon requires the HoloNet infrastructure. Out beyond civilized space, there is no such luxury. Subspace also allows instant communication, as long as there is a comm network infrastructure. Range is the difference. Subspace broadcasts can reach 25 to 100 light-years. This forms a mesh network of star systems, allowing messages to be relayed across the galaxy.
We're not receiving a return signal. Maybe we can contact Anakin on Naboo. It's much closer. Anakin, do you copy? This is Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm going to try and widen the range.
They often get to their destination. This seems to work similarly to Star Trek, which also uses subspace. For the purposes of the episode, Trek Subspace seems to have unlimited range. It would help to have subspace relays, but they don't seem necessary. Speed is its limiting factor. Captain Kirk can make decisions on his own without constantly asking Starfleet HQ for orders. At the same time, reports can be sent back, and new orders can still come in. This is a similar result to Star Wars subspace. Long-range subspace communication is slow and unreliable. For the Republic Scout, we'll use subspace transceivers, perhaps with a few comm relays to drop along the route. This Scout character will come with a variety of useful skills and experience. He will be a great navigator and a decent pilot. He will be experienced in wilderness survival. Knack Reen is not a warrior. He prefers to sneak by a problem or run away from it. This makes our trio quite well-rounded, except for one deliberate weakness. The previous 2 characters have little to no repair skills, because we've seen a lot of that already. A Scout needs to be able to keep his equipment working properly, so Knack is given all the mechanical expertise. There is one more thing we should add. A spot of diversity.
You're gonna need it.
The Star Wars universe is filled with all kinds of alien races, and we've just created 2 human characters. Our final character will have to be something else, anything but another human. There are many good options, but we can only pick one. 2 at the most, and let's not even go there. One obvious choice would be a Wookiee. This is perhaps the alien species most commonly seen in the movies. Certainly a good candidate, but they have their limitations.
Well, you said it, Chewie.
For example, that they are unable to speak Basic. When talking with Chewbacca, only Han and C-3PO understand his replies.
No, I will not be quiet, Chewbacca. Why doesn't any...
Nonetheless, Wookiees tend to have a way of making themselves understood.
Do you think that after what you did to Han, the world...
Let's avoid those headaches and pick something else. Solistons are a very good choice, but we'll use them elsewhere. For our scout, we need someone at home in space and the wilderness. We shall select one of the iconic aliens from the Cantina, Duros. The difference is that Duros are perfectly capable of speaking Basic. Given how long the Duros have been around, it's possible that Basic is descended from their native language. That is tremendously convenient. It lets all three characters communicate without needing 3PO. Nak will be friendly and quiet, with a love of space and all the worlds he visits. He is resolute in the face of danger. He might bluff before running away. Like Leptar, the scout will be relatively young. Duros are not noted as having remarkable lifespans, so we'll assume a roughly human range. Meeting up with the other characters should be simple enough. In between jaunts through wild space, all scouts need to refuel and resupply.
You really think we're going to find a pilot here that'll take us to Alderaan?
Most of the best freighter pilots that will be found here, only watch your step. This place can be a little rough.
I'm ready for anything. God damn it, Obi-Wan, you dirty old bastard.
For whatever story you want to tell, the scout is likely to kick off the plot. Perhaps he found something out there, and then brings it to the politician. Then Leptar gets the New Republic to send a single Y-Wing to investigate the matter. Nak doesn't mind where he's flying, so he's willing to work with the other pair for a good cause.
Alright, Chewie, let's go.
This trio is meant to be slightly extraordinary. Creating a batch of characters allows them to cover each other's blind spots.
Hey, I don't get it. It's just a dead animal, Chewie.
Chewie, wait, don't!
Naturally, each will specialize in a small range of skills. These are meant to be people as real as Han, Luke, and Leia. If you picked names out of an infinitely large hat, you might get these three. There could be a completely different set, such as a bunch of TIE pilots. You could even have the crew of a freighter, or a battle frigate. Even a group of moisture farmers might be fun to see. The idea of these characters is that they could be the focus of a movie trilogy. They should be interesting enough to not seem out of place. Someone that Han might have bought a used set of alluvial dampers from. If you've created them right, these characters should slot into a book, or anything else. A TV series, a computer game, a pen and paper role-playing game, an audio cassette. They are meant to have always been in the background, out of the camera's focus.
You want to go home and rethink your life?
I want to go home and rethink my life.
The goal in creating this trio just happens to line up with creating a party in an RPG. Role-playing games are designed to simulate a small group of characters, as opposed to an entire Star War. Their defining feature is quantifying the abilities of each character. From there, a player character encounters a challenge. Perhaps there is a lightsaber duel, or a Death Star to blow up. To find out what happens, an appropriate number of dice are rolled. The numbers rolled are compared to the target, using game rules and maths. This approach to simulation allows you to feel the difference between a Wookiee and an Ewok. If each one tries to move a boulder, Chewie might roll 5 dice and add +1 from his lifting skill. An Ewok would roll 1 die, as all the strength he has. Wicket has no lifting skill. The same applies for every possible scenario that might happen in the game. The games are designed to quantify and test character attributes, not player skill. That makes them perfect as a point of reference for the trio's power level.
Computer, activate the photonic cannon.
A Wookiee is very strong indeed, but they aren't any more perceptive than average. The Ewok can learn to speak Basic, where the Wookiee cannot.
You don't like Ewoks? Well, Ewoks don't like you.
Ewoks are not strong, but they are very good at hiding. We call this game balance. It's what stops everyone from always playing a Wookiee. My new trio of characters were all designed to be entertainingly powerful. They should all be compatible with any kind of RPG rule system you care to run. Personally, I was thinking of the West End Games RPG. The only questionable one is Narration, who has a lot of equipment in his ship. All of it important gear, but expensive. You might find the Dungeon Master has removed your speeder bike and blaster rifle, and all the medical supplies have been stolen. You can use drawbacks like these to balance out the expensive equipment needed by these backstories. Not everyone has a starship, after all.
Yes, Greedo. As a matter of fact, I was just going to see your boss.
An alert sounds in the cockpit, the insistent beeping of a hyperdrive warning. Dark blue fingers reach for a lever on the control panel. Narration smoothly cuts power to the hyperdrive motivator. The sound of the achieved target interrupt is the only alarm a pilot looks forward to hearing. A Republic Y-Wing and a TIE-derived Lone Scout A drop back into real space. This is unusual. Normally, the Scout flies the only ship in the system. Today, Nak has a starfighter escort and a passenger. The New Republic has sent a small team to the very edge of civilized space. Normally, the scout ship would be much farther out, surveying a dozen empty worlds each month. An extremely minor colony has stopped interacting with the wider galaxy. This might have gone unnoticed, if not for Leptar Hextraphon. His world traded with the colony, being the sector capital. It serves as a distribution hub, the only place the core worlds have on their shipping lanes. From there, smaller freighters serve the rest of the sector and the frontier. Narration has spent a lot of time there, buying supplies for his next trip into the unknown. The small colony had come to Leptar's attention due to infrastructure projects. It was due to be connected to the HoloNet within 5 standard years. Leptar was trying to calculate how much the sector would be improved by the comm relays. His 3D4X droid pointed out that the colony had not sent a message in 3 months. No requests for supply shipments. No ore barges carrying exports for sale. The droid suggests the subspace transceiver has been damaged, leaving the world cut off from the galaxy. Leptar intends to make good use of the event, so he has brought 2 subspace comm arrays. They are in a crate in the cargo bay of the Farblazer, for that is the scout ship's name. The most likely answer is a broken antenna. That would be a simple fix, as easy as spending credits.
Of course I'll have to replace it.
By delivering them personally, Hextraphon might get a village named after him. He doesn't expect a statue in the center of town made in his honor. If such a statue were to appear, Leptar wouldn't complain too strenuously. The New Republic insisted on sending a fighter escort with him, just in case. Gila Acton is an experienced pilot, more than enough to defend the Farblazer. Having arrived above the world, the logical first step is for the pilots to scan the site of the colony. The rules of the RPG tell us that scanning is very easy. In this scenario, the ship sensors are set to their narrowest focus mode. Official records give the precise location of the only settlement expected to be on the planet. Both ships have similar ranges to their sensors, but the pilots operating them are not equal. This is a good example of the RPG's game rules. The Duros Scout, Nak, has a mechanical attribute of 2D, and 1 point in the sensors skill. The Y-Wing pilot Gila has a mechanical attribute of 4D, and a point in the sensors skill. This means Nak rolls 3 dice, Gila rolls 5 dice. The difficulty of this challenge is rated as very easy, resulting in a target number of 5. The Scout rolls 3 5s, 1 for every die. The fighter pilot rolls dice that add up to 20, so both characters succeed. Just for fun, let's see how Leptar would have done. We'll give him a mechanical attribute of 2D plus 1 and no sensors skill at all. Lack of a skill means you get no bonus, so Leptar only rolls his mechanical dice code. He gets a 5 and a 4, and the plus 2 is added for a total of 10. He gets a 5 and a 4, and the +2 is added for a total of 11. Since the difficulty is very easy, everyone can complete this scan. In fact, Gila is such a good pilot, she could not possibly have failed this task. The other characters could fail, and the situation could be more complex. Suppose Gila had been wounded, or had been awake for 30 hours in a row. Factors like this would add modifiers to the dice roll, adjusting the target number up or down. In this case, sensors indicate that the settlement is empty. There are no large power signatures and only one life form detected in the village. Because everyone rolled a lot higher than needed, they know many things about the planet. The air is safe to breathe. The temperature is only slightly chilly. It's quite nice. There are only a few drawbacks. Dew, mist, pea soup, fog, low-flying clouds. This world has no rain, only condensation. Our trio of heroes flies down to land on the far edge of town. Narration collects his Freedom 1 blaster rifle from the rack. He also collects a few breath masks, 4 glow rods, and a portable scanner. A portable medpack is attached to the opposite thigh from his heavy blaster pistol. Nak opens the rear boarding ramp to find a wall of grey mist outside. Gila has jumped out of her Y-wing and Leptar is standing next to the Duros scout. Nak hands out spare breath masks and torches, keeping 2 glow rods for himself. The trio strides boldly through the deserted town. This would normally be a good opportunity to use the search skill. Today, the tricorder has picked up a clear set of life signs, leading us to the exact location.
Interesting.
There is no need to roll any dice in this situation because the outcome is not in question. The party follows the portable scanner to a warehouse, main door torn from its hinges. This feat is particularly intimidating, since it was a sliding door with no hinges. Nobody is visible inside. Now would be an appropriate time to roll some dice. In this case, it will be a search roll to find the hidden entity. Because this person is hiding, the type is an opposed roll. The creature hiding is quite skilled at this activity, so this will be relatively difficult. Let's say a perception attribute of 3D, which is above average for a human. Because of the scenario, I will give the hiding character +10 to whatever he rolls. Perhaps even +15, because it's dark inside the warehouse. The hidden life form rolls a 3, a 6, and a 4. I'll give him +5 bonus points for the darkness, +10 points because he is about 1 meter tall. That is a difficulty of 28. Leptar tries first. His perception is 3D +2, and with 1 skill point in search. He rolls a 2, a 1, a 6, and a 4. That's exactly the same as the other life form. It all comes down to the modifiers. I'll give him a +5 because he knows the general location of the life form. Leptar can tell that the warehouse is bare and disorganized. It has been emptied in a hurry. Next we'll look at Narration, the scout. His perception is 3D, but he has no search skill. Nak rolls a 2, a 4, and a 5. Because of the portable scanner, he knows exactly where the life form is hiding. That should make it very easy, +15 points for that. Even so, Nak cannot find the life form from the doorway. From having seen many colonies, he can tell the town was less than 2 years old. Gila would also like to search the building. Her perception is 3D with 1 point in search. She rolls a 2, a 4, a 5, and a 2. She knows the approximate location, so +5 for that. That makes for a total of 18 on the roll. However, Gila remembers to use the glow rod that everyone is carrying. Shining a light into the building negates the bonus from hiding in the dark, which is not enough for her to see. It is enough to make a difference for the scout, who suddenly notices the one hiding. With his knowledge of alien species, he can tell this giant bat is a Chadrafan. The little alien steps out of his hidey hole and jogs toward our trio. Delighted to see them, he explains the fate of the colony. Several enormous monsters the size of a binary load lifter had rampaged through the settlement. Most of the colonists evacuated aboard what ships they had, taking everything they could cram into the cargo holds. The lone survivor had been cornered in the warehouse, but managed to stay out of their claws by hiding out of reach. Knack passes a spare glow rod to the little creature, offering him a ride back to civilization. After a moment, the scout hands his DL-44 pistol to Batman as well. The Chadrafan insists that no such predators existed on this planet. Before settling here, the world had been exhaustively catalogued. Despite its remoteness, the settlement had been rated as very safe. Having had a couple of days to think, the survivor knows who to blame. 4 months ago, a large pirate scow had visited the spaceport. To get rid of the pirates, the settlers had sold a substantial amount of their fuel reserves. They had refused to repair the Marauder's vessel. A minute after leaving the launch pad, it fired upon their antenna array. That was the last time the pirates had been seen, until this week. Several colonists had seen the pirate scow in orbit the day before the attack. Its starboard cargo bay could have held half a dozen monsters. The party makes good time on the way back through town. As the 4 beings get near the spaceport, their luck runs out. Something is nearby. To determine how quickly the group notices something is wrong, we need a perception check. This will be very much like the warehouse, with 2 main differences. First, unlike when searching, there will be no skill added to the roll. Second, this will not be an opposed roll. We're testing the characters on their ability to notice things. The search skill is used when something is intentionally hidden. However, this creature is making no attempt to hide itself.
Found someone you have, I would say.
Right.
Our heroes will definitely notice this creature. The only question is how close they are. The dice rolls will be the base perception attribute, which is 3D for most of our characters. Even the one from Chad has only 3D, which is moderately above average. Because of all the mist on this world, visibility is greatly obscured. For this situation, we won't add a modifier to the target number. Instead, this planet simply has a visibility range of 10 meters. Once at that range, it becomes an easy task with a target number of 10. Gila rolls 3 dice and gets a 13. Knack rolls 3 dice and gets 10. Leptar rolls 3D plus 2 for a total of 12. The Chadrafan they are escorting rolls 3 dice as well. He has excellent luck. He gets a 6, a 6, a 4, and then the dice explode. Pointing at the game rules, he rolls one of the 6s again to get a 3. He insists he got 19 from 3 dice. Everyone notices a large shape looming out of the endless fog. It is a Gundark, and it stands in the road out of town. The pilot and Diplomat draw their blaster pistols just in case. The scout and survivor had already been carrying their blasters at the ready. Not to be outdone, Leptar readies the vibro sword in his other hand. Our heroes attempt to stealthily take the long way around. This is another opposing roll, so we test the Gundark's perception. Unfortunately, the Gundark can be quite observant. With 3D plus 2 perception, its result is 13. Knack has 3D perception with 1 point in sneak. This gets him a roll of 15 from 4 dice. Gila has 3D perception and gets 15 despite having no sneak skill. Leptar has 3D plus 2, no sneak skill, and only gets a result of 10. The Gundark catches sight of Leptar, and combat begins. Turn order, the initiative system, depends on perception as well. The Gundark rolls another 13, higher than the players, so it goes first. It will charge toward Leptar, attempting to maul him. A Gundark is known to charge 12 meters, and this one is 10 meters away. The next highest initiative roll belongs to Leptar. He rolls 11. He fires a shot from his sporting blaster, trying to defend against the creature. He waits for the last moment, when his aim will be the most precise. He can't miss. He has 4 dice and the difficulty is only 3. His blaster bolt connects, rolling 14 for damage. The Gundark rolls 19 defense, shrugging off the particle beam. Despite failing to injure the creature, it will now be impaired by 1 die. The Gundark rolls 14 to hit. Leptar rolls 10 to parry. He has been hit by the monster's claws. The Gundark rolls its strength for 30 damage. Leptar gets a chance to resist the damage, but he only rolls 9 to defend. Since he has taken 3 times as much damage as his strength roll, he is mortally wounded. Hexdrafan falls unconscious, and the beast turns to the others. Knack the Scout is next, who fires a shot from his blaster rifle. Gila attempts 2 shots from her blaster pistol. The Chadrafan dodges to cover, then takes a shot. First, each character rolls to hit. The difficulty at this range is 10, and all roll above that. Nak's blaster skill is 3D plus 2, which comes out to 12. The blaster rifle is more powerful than the sporting blaster, dealing 5D of damage. He gets a damage roll of 19, a single point higher than the Gundark's damage resistance roll. That is enough to count. Nak has inflicted a wound on the beast. After one shot got through, the monster is now wounded. It cannot act again this turn, but its plans were already complete. It should fall prone, but for such a fearless beast, that doesn't sound right. This also doubles the stun effect, bringing it to a minus 2D penalty. Next is Gila's first shot. With the monster already in their midst, this is called point-blank range. Short range, for her blaster, is around 5 to 15 meters. This close, the target is 3 to hit, and she has 3 dice. Her blaster does 4D of damage, which gives a result of 15. This Gundark can only roll 4D plus 2 to resist, due to the stun effect. This time it rolls 16, still enough to withstand the blaster bolt. The monster now takes a minus 3D penalty to all its rolls. While the others are shooting, the Chadrafan dives for cover. This completes the first pass. Everyone in combat has made one action. The next step is to simulate any remaining actions this turn. Since 2 people prepared shots, we go back and forth between them. Taking multiple actions per turn causes a penalty of minus 1D every time. Gila Acton fires her second shot from the DH-17 blaster pistol. Her blaster skill check is down to 3D, as this is a second action this turn. She rolls a 5, and this is just high enough for her aim to be true. The injured Gundark makes a 3D plus 2 strength roll to resist damage. It gets 2 1s, a 2, and a 3, adding up to 7. Gila's blaster pistol does 4D of damage. She ends up rolling a 17. The monster keels over, going from wounded to incapacitated. It will be unconscious for the next 37 minutes. With this, the combat encounter has been resolved. The Chadrafan re-emerges from hiding, and 2 pilots rush to their fallen comrade.
Annie, are you alright?
Luckily, the Gundark did not land on Leptar when it passed out. Gila picks up the Merson Quick 6 blaster from the ground, passing it to the Man-Bat. The Duros scout quietly unclips the portable medpack strapped to his thigh. Nobody here is trained in first aid, so Gila opens the kit. Leptar has been badly slashed across his shoulder and forearm. The Y-Wing pilot reaches for the laser cauterizer to stem the bleeding. Healing a mortal wound requires a difficult skill check, with a target number of 20. Gila rolls 3 dice from her technical attribute with no skill bonuses. She would need to get a 7 on every die for a success, which would be cheating. She rolls a total of 7, which strains Leptar's body to the limit. His arm has a splint applied, and his wounds have been closed. Because the roll was more than 10 points too low, no more medical treatment can be tried for the next 24 hours. He has not recovered at all, but he didn't get any worse. Leptar can now be carried back to the ships, before anything smells blood on the wind. He will live, so long as nothing exciting happens on the return journey.
He looks strong enough to pull ears off a Gundark.
Thanks to you.
At this point, I would like to emphasize how this story came about. A writer would have decided that the Force-sensitive hero is attacked by a monster. That isn't how an RPG works. All I did was place a Gundark in the road. The outcome is out of my hands. The dice and game rules will decide their fate. If the characters had rolled well for their stealth checks, they could have avoided a fight entirely. If they had rolled better numbers for their blasters, they might have escaped without a scratch. Before running the simulation, I had no idea what the outcome would be. These were all genuine dice rolls, no fudging the numbers or rolling again. That's the point of simulating. Randomness is part of the game. As time goes on, your character can be trained to have better stats and more dice. The best way is to have your characters think carefully about their plans. Refer back to the scanning. It was easy because they knew exactly where to look.
I'm not picking up any cities or technology. Massive lifeform readings, though. There's something alive down there.
Scanning an entire world would have been harder. There are two ways to support us. Become a patron at patreon.com/thebreadcircus, or like, comment, and subscribe. Only the former option guarantees that your name lives on in history. The other is embarrassing YouTube-y stuff. Brandon Smith is clearly using a pseudonym. Das Log Tractor has a Lamborghini tractor he wants us to know about. It's a nice tractor. Conk, a Discord moderator. And Zafrex, whose name sounds like a pill you would take to calm down while scrolling your Twitter timeline. Nice guy, honestly.
What, you think you're some kind of Jedi waving your hand around like that? I'm a Toydarian. My tricks gonna work on me. Only money. No money, no parts, no deal.